Given how long it takes to make even a small-scale video game and how much money is typically invested in their development, publishers naturally want to make sure that everyone's aware of their existence leading up to release. But every so often, a game will just hit as if it arrived totally out of nowhere, with minimal pre-release hype or anyone expecting it to be quite so brilliant. But brilliant they were, at least in the terms of the 10 games I'm going to tell you about now. And just from WhatCulture, and here are 10 amazing recent video games no one saw coming. Number 10. Mouthwashing. Mouthwashing is absolutely one of those games best played while knowing as little as possible. It's an easy task given that it became a viral hit after launching seemingly out of nowhere last September. If you're a fan of retro-flavored horror, it's a no-brainer play for you. But if you need that harder sell, Mouthwashing is a first-person horror adventure game taking place on board a spaceship in the aftermath of a crash, which leaves the crew stranded in space and, without giving too much away, quickly losing their minds. Mouthwashing makes inspired use of non-linear storytelling to weave a twisted, skin-crawlingly unsettling narrative. And while the game is firmly in the walking simulator bucket, the general lack of traditional horror gameplay, namely combat, in no way detracts from the game's unnerving atmosphere. The throwback low-poly visual style might be trendy nowadays, but this is an especially inspired rendition of it. The internal garishness only enhancing player anxiety as they traipse around the claustrophobic spaceship in search of answers. And on top of that, it'll probably take you less than 3 hours to beat. Number 9. Bionic Bay. It's nothing short of criminal that Bionic Bay has just a few hundred user reviews on Steam, because it's easily one of 2025's most unexpected surprises so far, materializing as it did, seemingly out of thin air. At first glance, it's easy to compare this visually stunning indie puzzle platformer to kings of the genre like Limbo and Inside, but Bionic Bay is very much its own beast. For starters, it's an at times brutally difficult game as you navigate an oppressive world replete with dangers. However, a number of inspired special powers, like the ability to swap places with an object in the environment and gravity manipulation, require players to use their noggin and get creative if you want to make progress. Fusing an intriguingly minimalist story with eye-wateringly beautiful art direction and clever physics-based gameplay, Bionic Bay is a game that absolutely deserves all of the flowers. Don't sleep on it, especially if you haven't heard about it. Number 8. 1000 times resist. At first glance, 1000 times resist or 1000x resist, I don't know enough about this game to know which it is, looks like it might just be another cyberpunk spiced adventure game, clipping at the heels of games like Nier Automata. And with this being developer Sunset Visitor's first game, it wouldn't have surprised anybody if it came and went in a blink. But cream has a habit of rising to the top, and this particular game received enthusiastic raves from the games press. For, above all else, its smart execution of an ambitious sci-fi story unfolding in a post-apocalyptic future where humanity has been wiped out, save for a sole survivor who exists alongside a society of her clones. Despite this high-concept setup, it's really more of a heightened visual novel than anything, a game wholly concerned with its mood, characters, and narrative above gameplay trappings. It's a gamble that could have fallen spectacularly flat, but the perceptiveness of the writing and atmospheric visuals make this one of the most distinctive, thought-provoking releases of last year. Sunset Visitor recently celebrated selling 100,000 copies of the game, but considering its quality, that figure should be way higher, so if you want to grab one yourself, it's not too late. Which makes sense, it's a digital video game. Let's keep going. Number 7. Batro. Poker-themed roguelike Batro became a stonking smash hit out of nowhere last year after being quietly developed by a single anonymous developer who goes by the moniker Local Thunk. The beauty of Batro is that you don't need to be a fan of roguelikes, card games, or even poker specifically to become fiendishly addicted to it, and I can attest to that. In fact, a lot of people have called it a poker game for people who don't like or even know how to play poker. Card hands are the weapon you wield throughout Batro, a concept so elegantly simple but ingenious, it's genuinely surprising it hasn't been done before. Couple this with a deceptive depth, which fully reveals itself the further you play, eye-popping presentation, and an almost narcotically addictive gameplay loop, and Batro is exactly the sort of creative spin on well-worn genres that we desperately need more of. Thankfully, this one didn't merely live on as a celebrated cult curio. Batro was also a sales phenomenon and received a shed load of Game of the Year nominations. You'll love to see it. Number 6. Blueprints. Ah yes, it's the game that no one will shut up about, including me, and I'm not going to be stopping talking about it anytime soon, particularly because I need to read you this entry all about it. But if you don't know, you're probably going to want to know. Blueprints is a game that was on precisely nobody's lips before it launched at the start of April, and yet rave reviews from critics and players alike immediately shoved it into the Game of the Year conversation. A fascinating, unique riff on both the puzzle, adventure, and roguelike genres, Blueprints sees players exploring a mansion which contains constantly shifting rooms, all while using a limited number of steps to seek out the end goal, that being the elusive 46th room. This is a game that continually surprises you with the joy and intrigue of discovery, the mansion's randomized layout offset by the knowledge of the rooms you'll gain on each run. You absolutely want to grab a pen and paper. I personally got a whole-ass notebook. And not only are there puzzles for days, the place is also dripping with atmosphere while teasing out a slyly engrossing mystery. And even those who wince at the stressful implications of the roguelike label might be pleasantly surprised at just how chill or even downright cozy this game is. Unless you're running out of steps, or keys, or money. But then you just start again. Or, as everyone I know has done in this game, decide, you know what, I think I've seen it all, and that's just fine. Number 5. Animal Well. Animal Well is yet another mind-bogglingly impressive game whose solo-developed nature belies just how monumental it is. A mesmerizing riff on the well-trod Metroidvania, Animal Well tasks players with navigating a bewilderingly trippy underground labyrinth, which is filled with animals, exactly like it says on the tin. Except this is a game whose atmosphere is so very thick you could almost choke on it. The underground murk melds with a gorgeous ambient synth score and overpowering sense of mystery, which ensures there's never a dull moment, even with the lack of dialogue. The sense of discovery, of finding new tools to help traversal or puzzle solving, is a constant joy. And even once you've rolled credits on it, there's still so much more to seek out. Animal Well proved above all else that there's still plenty of room to do something new with the Metroidvania, evidenced by its truckload of nominations during the most recent awards circuit. Number 4. UFO 50. Despite launching somewhat quietly last September, UFO 50 was in development for a whopping 8 years, as 6 developers pooled their efforts to create a compendium of 50 faux retro games inside a single retail package. While UFO 50 stays flabbergastingly true to the style of classic 8-bit gaming anthologies, there's a cleverness and creativity to the gameplay mechanics throughout that feels incredibly contemporary. Though you'd certainly expect a decent amount of filler to pad the collection to 50 games, even the lesser titles are generally doing something interesting and noteworthy. And then the better games are as compulsively addictive as any great modern AAA release, with a lot of players lamenting the fact that they're mere bite-sized excursions. That is to say, a bunch of the titles on offer here could easily have been released as standalone offerings. So to get 50 mostly excellent games for like $20, it basically feels like you're stealing from the devs. Thankfully, it ended up selling like hotcakes and racked up a handful of prestigious nominations like Best Independent Game at the Game Awards and PC Game of the Year at the Golden Joysticks. Number 3. Thank goodness you're here. The most British video game ever made, quite appropriately, toddled shyly onto gaming platforms last summer, where it became a plucky word-of-mouth hit. Thank Goodness You're Here casts players in the role of a traveling salesman who heads to the northern English town of Barnsworth to meet with the mayor, only to end up roped into solving the local citizens' various mundane problems. Yet these seemingly tedious fetch quests all have a deranged, usually hilarious payoff. Developer Cole Supper wringing surreal gut laughs out of even the most provincial of busy work predicaments. While the gameplay might be incredibly simple, Thank Goodness You're Here is an adventure game overflowing with personality, wearing its unmistakable Britishness on its sleeve and aided by gorgeous hand-drawn animation and sublimely authentic regional voice acting. If you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with all the very serious AAA games out there right now, do yourself a favor by spending a few hours unwinding with the unhinged residents of Barnsworth. Number 2. Clare Obscure, Expedition 33. Clare Obscure Expedition 33, or the game I started 2 days ago and is now destroying my life Elden Ring style, isn't merely a fantastic game that few were talking about shortly before release. It's already one of the best reviewed video games of all time, and an RPG which can genuinely be called generation-defining. Recency bias be damned. Outside of RPG enthusiast circles, the hype was kind of muted for this one pre-release. It's a AA game with clear AAA aspirations, coming from a new, untested developer comprised of just 30 core team members, and suspiciously launching for just $50. It would have surprised nobody if this was another Immortals of Avium, a visually stunning yet over-familiar title that just failed to distinguish itself in a crowded field. But between its fascinatingly unique premise, brilliant characters, ludicrously addictive combat, if incredibly difficult combat at times, and lush world, Expedition 33 is a major breath of fresh air in the RPG space. A truly grown-up fantasy adventure that cleverly toys with player expectations throughout. It also is one of the rarest of things that is a really good RPG that can be beaten in around 30 hours. Oh my god, I didn't know how long this thing was. Thank goodness, that is so wonderful to hear. Thank you, Jack. Let's go to number 1. Number 1, Despalote. And finally we have Despalote, which I did look up how to say. This is an endlessly charming walking simulator which just so happens to be about one of the most unexpected of things, that being football. Inspired by the real-life experiences of developer Julian Cordero, Despalote takes place in Ecuador's capital city of Quito, as an 8-year-old Julian cheers on the national football team's history-making qualification for the 2002 FIFA World Cup. Even though Despalote is barely 90 minutes long, it so powerfully captures the potential for sport, and football in particular, to unite communities and change lives. Throughout the experience, we see how Julian's young life was shaped by the act of kicking a ball, leading to a fantastically impactful final sequence. The game also benefits from a striking high-contrast art style, fusing 3D environments with 2D hand-drawn characters in disarming fashion, as well as outstanding voice acting from the ensemble cast. Despalote is exactly the kind of relaxing, affecting, and low-demand indie that you'll probably want to play after spending a few dozen hours fighting a behemoth like Clare Obscure Expedition 33. You should play both, but that might be the right order.